What's up, outliers? Market's closed, so time for an OpX market update. So today I got two things on the agenda, good old GameStop, and then we're going to take a look at Chewy. And then for those that are interested, later today at 5 p.m. Pacific time, we have our options trading for beginners live stream. So today's kind of an open-ended day. We'll cover whatever topics you all want to spend a little time diving deeper into, but these are sessions built around and for beginners. So this is where you can come ask all of those beginner questions that you might not feel comfortable sharing them somewhere else, or you're just struggling to pick up. That's what it's for. So let's get right in. Today, I actually did not love the price action in GameStop. And the reason why I didn't love the price action is because GameStop was kind of a little bit down today. If I zoom this in a little bit, you can see that we opened at 22.25 and then we closed at 22.21. So essentially a flat day, but I don't like that it's slightly negative. There's a few reasons for this, primarily because the larger burden of where we think interest rates are going and what small caps are doing was actually slightly lifted today. And this is what I'm referring to right here. IWM had a pretty big day today. It was over 3%. And this comes back from Big Daddy J Powell hanging out with the boys at Jackson Hole. And they're just out there talking their shit. Obviously, I'm joking, but they're talking about inflation. And they're starting to signal that they think it's about time. And the reason why I don't appreciate the way GME behaved today from a price perspective, I was hoping for more of a pop is what I'm getting at, is because take a look at this. This is the number of companies in the New York Stock Exchange, so a lot of small and mid cap stocks that have made highs today. So when I look at this, yesterday, net highs lows was 136 companies. Today, it was 287. A massive change. Now, the other thing is gross highs lows, meaning just a raw number, not net. Yesterday, gross highs was 153, and today it's 293, almost double. So a lot of small cap stocks saw a breath of fresh air today, and you can see that bit across this whole thing. So really what this highlights is that the argument of the broader indices are slowing down and not helping is actually kind of abated here, which to some degree that's not bad because it means that we don't necessarily have an additional headwind. But I really was hopeful that we might see a little bit of life come in today. And we just didn't really see this pop through. So volume today, again, for kind of 2 days running was overwhelming sale volume and very light. 4 million shares traded with, I mean, we're below the 20-day average. We're slightly above the 5-day average, which is nice just to see a little bit of volume picking up on a relative basis, but it's still pretty contracted, unfortunately. So again, it goes back to this thing, until we start to see volume picking up to some degree, this is more or less what I expect to see is kind of this sideways trending action. And my expectation would be as soon as we start seeing some volume flow into this, we'll start to see some price movement. Now, the other positive I do want to highlight here, although I don't love that we're starting to rotate over ever so slightly, is that we have been range bound. Essentially from the 9th, we have been trading almost straight sideways. So one of the benefits to that, looking on the bright side of things again, is that even though there's decent sale volume, it's not strong enough to really start pushing price down, which is also awesome to see. So a bit of a mixed bag, I suppose. I just really wanted to see, with the broader market lifting today, some of that flow over into this, but I mean, that's just how it goes sometimes. So let's take a look at the options chain. And today we had a decent amount of OI bleed off. So there was 574,000 calls. And after today, 100,000 of those are gone. So we are, again, in this quieter period with respect to just where we're seeing options activity. Your boy's keeping an eye on it, as I said I would, but there's just not a whole lot to keep an eye on. It's relatively slow and steady in here. The other thing I will note yet again is take a look at this 6-step. I took my volatility trade down today because I started thinking I got the move I was going to get. And sure enough, vol dropped from over 80% for this expiration cycle down to 72. So there was a little bit of a move there, but I took it down before this move because otherwise, I mean, I would just start losing money on this trade at this point, the vol trade. I still expect that 72% to go up for sure, but it's just taken its sweet time. Now, the other thing I did want to see is based on the volume today, very light, and it looks like most of it is moving out into the next expiration cycle. So kind of standard general behavior here for GameStop, playing mostly on the front options. And again, reminder, we have earnings coming up on the 4th, scheduled right now for before the open. The other thing I did was take a look for the whole week. And I wanted to see in GameStop first, then we'll look at Chewy. But looking through GameStop, focusing on the calls and just seeing what kind of sizes we saw. We only had 2 lines, 2 trades, composite trades, this top one, above $100,000. This one's large, to be clear. The 20 June 25s, those were $364,000 trade. That's not insignificant. But I mean, the other trade was for 16 Jan 26. That was 175. So like all of these bigger trades are pretty far out in time. And those are the only 2. So just again, another example of a pretty quiet week with respect to the options chain. All right, quick peek at Chewy, because the interesting thing in here is that we've started running sideways here as well. So back from a quick break, grab a drink of water. Actually, it's a little bit of Pedialyte, getting you hydration on. So in Chewy, they've also been really trending sideways. I think I already told you guys I had some long calls that I exited out here, and it's just because it just wasn't moving right. So in here, it was rallying pretty hard, and then my guess is that it's quite likely to consolidate into earnings, which it has on the 28th. So the difference, though, is when I look at Chewy, is Chewy options have actually been really busy on a relative basis. And when I say busy, I'm specifically highlighting, look at all these different expirations that are in here. Whereas when we typically look at GameStop, it's very siloed to front expiration, second expiration as the front expiration's expiring, and you know, that whole bit. Here, it continues to be all over the place. But there's definitely positioning going on for earnings, which again is on the 28th, which will be captured here. And you can see that there's double calls to puts. So still relatively small, 32K to 15K, but nonetheless bullish positioning as far as I can see for earnings coming up. And we can see earnings vol nice and high as per usual. So 128% vol, which promptly drops down to 96%, which again is what I expect to see for earnings, unlike what we're seeing in GameStop. Now, obviously, before we get too far, we actually have to go back to GameStop because you all know what needs to happen. We got to pour one out for the homies because there is just a bunch of people, again, that have options that just expired completely worthless. We can see, for example, of this 11,000, there was 1,700 added over yesterday and only 7,600 traded today. So I'm guessing the majority of the 7,600 would be people trying to grab whatever value they can, but that leads several thousand that just expired worthless. So shout out to the homies. That's how she goes sometimes. Now, again, I continue to reiterate this point. If you buy calls or if you buy options, I have a video, I will link to it as I always do, on a way to do this a little bit better, a little smarter, so that we're not just lighting money on fire on a weekly basis. It does not have to be like that. So I'll throw that in the notes below in case you want to check that out. And in case you just want to stay playing the fronts and seeing what happens, that's cool too. Whatever floats your boat. Now, the last thing I'll say about Chewy is when I look at Chewy options activity for this past week, I get a different view. And it's, I mean, take a look at this. This is for this entire week call side on the ask side. And this is literally all that populates, right? And we're already down here to $207. So much smaller aggregate size and total trading here. Options chain in Chewy is also relatively quiet at this time. So that is the expiration week for here. Again, coverage as promised, but not a whole lot to report at this time. Now, tomorrow we have our GameStop YouTube live stream at 5 p.m. Pacific time. This will be another solo one. I'm chatting with Newton to see if we can find a time that fits with his schedule a little bit better in the coming weeks to get us back together for some of those kind of fun joint sessions. But really, at this point, I'm still spending a lot of time digging into the background. So that's the goal for tomorrow. If there's anything you think I should take a look at, let me know. I would love to. Until next time, be an outlier. I'll see you guys later.